Guest line. Check out favorites.com and go with the home team, Mississippi Farm Bureau. As he does every week, Kendall Rogers joins us on this Tuesday afternoon to talk college baseball. What a weekend we had all across the SEC this past weekend, Kendall. Kendall's with D1 Baseball. You can find him at d1baseball.com. If you haven't subscribed, we strongly encourage you to do so. Hello, my friend.
How's it going? I feel like every single week in the Magnolia State, I feel like it's just like basically like a magic 8-ball on what we're going to talk about.
Yeah. I did not have Mississippi State having one hit through 8 innings and losing to Central Arkansas as one of the options on the bingo card going into this afternoon's conversation.
Yeah, no doubt. I think if you look at, Mississippi State overall, this is a team that, frankly, like I feel like the last couple of weeks, they've played fine. They've lost a series to A&M, they lost a series to Florida, but they had a chance to win both the series. Certainly the Florida series is one they probably should have won. If they don't throw a ball down the middle to Jack Caglione, they probably win that series. But, on the weekend, I still feel pretty good about this team. Obviously, they had a little bit of a hangover against Central Arkansas, but you've got a big weekend coming up in the Battle of the Dogs. You've got, one team in Georgia who, after the first game against Tennessee, you're thinking, oh, boy, these guys are the real deal. And then, Tennessee wins the second game and then dominates them in the third game. So that's a fascinating series coming up in a few days at Start Vegas.
Yeah, and in some ways, today doesn't matter if Mississippi State wins the series against Georgia this weekend.
Yeah, just ask Florida.
No, completely agree. But what does that put a bigger onus on Mississippi State for a certain number of wins in conference play, considering the fact that they've got 6 non-conference losses now?
It does. They need to win some weekend games, but I have to be consistent here, and we've been steadfast on Florida. As long as they continue to take care of business on the weekend, they'll be just fine. Obviously, Mississippi State in a little bit different situation, having lost 2 conference series. Florida having not lost any. But I think if State can get on a roll here, they've got 2 of the tougher teams in their schedule done with. Actually, 3 of their tougher teams. I still consider LSU a team that I think down the stretch will be fine. Obviously, going through a little bit of an issue right now, but they've got 3 of their tougher opponents off the schedule. I think they'll probably finish strong. So, yeah, you want to start winning more conference games, but, ultimately, you can, lose some midweek games. But, ultimately, if you win on the weekend down the stretch, I think they'll be fine no matter what.
I'd like for us, Kendall, to talk about Ole Miss in 2 parts. First, about Ole Miss, and then a little bit about Kentucky, because came away pretty impressed with Kentucky this weekend. But let's start with Ole Miss. They have been run-ruled in 3 of their last 6 SEC games, so not in it at all. Mixed in with that, they had a pretty impressive win at Tennessee. They've got a pretty impressive series win against South Carolina.
Yeah.
What do you see with Ole Miss right now?
Yeah, the biggest thing for me is I need to see consistency. The weird thing about the weekend for them is, they got, I guess the most alarming thing to me is they got blown out in one of the games where they didn't even have a single error. That to me is concerning. One of the other losses over the weekend, they had multiple errors. So I think the biggest thing for me, 6 errors. That's not very good. And so I just think the biggest thing with Ole Miss is obviously they're going to need to pitch better down the stretch to have a chance to make the postseason. But I think the other thing for me is there needs to be some consistency. When you have one game where you have 6 errors and you have one game when you have 0, no matter the result, that just tells me you're very inconsistent at times defensively. So it doesn't get easier for them.
No.
They face the Hogs, but I will say this about Ole Miss is historically they do play Arkansas pretty tough, no matter where that series is played. So we'll see.
Yeah, Ole Miss has certainly had some success in Fayetteville. It's a really tough matchup. Is this? I watched a fair amount of Arkansas and LSU this weekend, and Arkansas, at least to this point of the season, has not scared you offensively. They're scary as heck on the mound. They just got whether you're talking about starters or McIntyre coming out of the bullpen. Obviously that is a beast. But it felt like this weekend they took a step forward offensively. Is that a reasonable thing to say?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the thing about Arkansas, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, when you look at their offensive lineup, it's not like you're looking at, A&M or Florida with those guys at the top of the lineup and going, oh, man, this is really scary. But what Arkansas is, and we'll get to this in a minute on Kentucky, but what Arkansas is offensively is a team, they know exactly who they are. They know that they do not have anybody in that lineup who's going to go out there and hit who's going to have 16 or 17 home runs already this season. But what they know they are is a team that can find ways to generate runs. Peyton Stovall is a guy that I feel like for the last 3 years we've been going, okay, hey, this is his time. Like, he's gonna break out. Well, now he's healthy and he's finally starting to be that guy that we thought he would be when he showed up on campus, over 2 years ago. So the biggest thing for Arkansas is I think they have a lineup full of really good role players and a lot of really good college baseball players, not necessarily a superstar. But, that can sometimes be dangerous because that means they're not reliant on, two guys in a lineup to do all the damage. They've got guys that can do it up and down the lineup.
All right. Kentucky is 8-1. I will give you that they have not played the most difficult schedule so far. They've swept Georgia. They've won 2 of 3 against Missouri. They have swept Ole Miss. And in SEC games only, Kentucky is leading the league in hitting. They're hitting .320 in conference games, and that's like 30 points better than what they're hitting overall for the season. How good do you think Kentucky is?
Yeah, the thing I really like about UK, and what's really interesting about these guys, I saw them earlier in the year at the Round Rock tournament, and I mean they were solid. They weren't this good, but I think the biggest thing for them is, when you look at their lineup, look at all the old guys. Look at all the guys with experience. You got Devin Burks behind the plate, who's been a leader and a producer for them on a consistent basis. You got Emilian Petre up the middle at second base. You got Grant Smith, up the middle at shortstop. Mitch Daly, the Texas transfer, has a lot of at bats in college baseball. Ryan Waldschmidt's a really talented guy who has a lot of at bats. So the common denominator with this team is they're just very experienced from an offensive standpoint. Now, I do wonder if they have staying power on the mound. I mean, having seen their arms on a weekend, I'm not sure how they stack up against some of the better teams in the league. But I mean, I tell you what, they know exactly who they are, just like Arkansas offensively, and they really run that system very, very well. It's a machine. It's precision-like, and because of that, they're not going to beat themselves. You're going to have to go out there and beat them. And there will be teams they play that are more talented, that are better, that will beat them. But if you give them an inch, they'll take a foot. So that's just kind of the team that they are, in my opinion.
You said a second ago you think LSU is going to be okay down the stretch. You're not taking into account the post-national championship curse. We've seen it up close and in person. You've had to watch from a distance for the last 2 years. LSU's dead. I mean, forget about them, Kendall.
Yeah, I mean, when I say okay, I mean making the tournament. I don't mean okay in terms of, like, they're going to be a top 8 seed. My biggest thing with LSU is, they just haven't been very good behind the plate. I mean, historically, this is a team that has been very good behind the plate. And you look at Hayden Travinci over the weekend, I thought he really struggled behind the plate against Arkansas. And when you already have a pitching staff that, other than Luke Holman, has been very up and down, you've got to have elite catching behind the plate. So I think the biggest thing for them is, I think if they can have a big weekend against Vanderbilt, I think they, can get them back on track. But I am with you in the sense that, like, I don't think they're going to be a top 8 team again this year. I'll put it that way, because I mean they play Vandy, and I want to say they play Tennessee the next weekend in Knoxville. And you talk about a team that will be ready to see the purple and gold in a couple weeks. That's Tennessee and Knoxville.
Ooh, yeah. And I mean, that's the thing. I know Missouri's 1-8. They do have a win against Kentucky, who's 8-1. I know that Auburn is 1-8. They've got a win against Arkansas. I mean, even the 2 1-8 teams, it's not like there's an easy out, especially if you have to go to their place.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Missouri's very good, but I'll say this. I saw Auburn over the weekend twice against A&M. Yeah, I like their club. Like, it's very odd that they're 1-8 because I think offensively they're crazy dangerous with Cooper McMurray and Ike Irish. I mean, that's as good of a 3 and 4 hole hitter as you'll see in college baseball. I think they've got depth, and they got guys like Bobby Pierce that are at the bottom of the lineup that have a lot of at bats. On the mound, they're a little iffy. I mean, they've got stuff, but they need to throw strikes. That's kind of been their bugaboo. But I'll tell you what, offensively, they're going to make someone's life at some point in this league very miserable on the mound.
Yeah, certainly it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Kendall, Always appreciate your time. Good catching up, and we'll talk to you again next Tuesday.
You got it, brother. Be good. Have a great week. Thank you.
Kendall Rogers joining us on the Farm Bureau guest line. He's at